You are now listening to Carlie's Couch.
I'm Carlie.
And I'm Lex.
In this podcast, we discuss a wide array of topics about life and how to live your best life.
Whatever that looks like for you.
Hope y'all enjoy.
We've all heard of trauma responses and triggers, but have you heard of glimmers? This week on Carlie's Couch, we explore glimmers and how they can add a shine to your life.
Ooh, that was good. Makes me want to listen to the episode.
Well, we have one. Will there be another? Welcome to Carlie's Couch, guys.
I was about to say, hold on. Look, Jay and Sanford still be holding us down, so we got three.
That's real. Shout out to y'all. We're like the meme where you're out the window to two people.
Holding us down. We appreciate y'all. But people been telling me they've been listening and enjoying it. That we've been reading them and that sometimes they have to take a break because we be reading them too hard, which I understand and appreciate because I be reading myself, so I feel you. This week's question on the couch is really funny to me, and I got some very long-winded answers.
Yeah, I was about to say, why are there paragraphs?
So this week's question on the couch.
We're going to keep the episode short.
Who is your favorite villain and why?
Well, and you know what? The problem is y'all are answering these on your computers instead of your phones. Because he has an intro sentence, a body, and a conclusion. When people talk about villains, we typically default to Disney villains, many of which are queer-coded because being gay is bad. Similarly, in the comic book world, most villains had a sense of other that reflected in cultural differences, race, gender, and sexuality. The trouble with the villain question is that many of them are redeemed now. A change of heart, learned their lesson, or the misunderstanding was cleared up. I could debate and talk about villains and identity forever. Emma Frost, the epitome of weaponized sexuality, whose only goal was for the children, wanting to make life easier for her students themselves, outcasts and villains. Her heel turn to hero didn't lessen her drive, and many times she was mistrusted or accused of being bad despite only working for the betterment of the mutant community. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. The next one.
Thank you.
Favorite movie villain is Elijah Price from the 2019 movie Glass. He wanted to prove that there were unique people out there in the world by showing the corruption and how they are being abused. It's the final of a trilogy, so there was much more that he did to get to where he needed to be, but he did a pretty damn good job. That reminds me, there's one that I didn't put on here. Sorry, I'm gonna say it right now because she liked him because he was a villain. Bane, she was like, because he was born of the darkness and it was in him and all these things. So
that's who my favorite villain might be.
She said Bane, and then she also replied with some other follow-up stuff. I'm mad I forgot about it, but that was one too.
Another person said Magneto, which I agree had good intentions, good reasons why he was the way he was, and tried to make him a villain, but he's a prophet. Okay.
Someone said Scar, music, but he had every right to be mad.
Uncle Tony from Heavyweights, he definitely was right.
He was right.
But the problem with the villains is like the execution is wrong, and you're not God, you're not in control. So like you got to figure out how to deal with the issue from your side, not doing anything to other people. That's the problem.
Look, that was a whole episode in and of itself.
Yeah, just because you want to see something in the world, like we all want to see something in the world, and we might not be wrong, but you can't force that. All you can do is live your life and like be an example and do your thing and let people come to you and follow what you have to say. But alas, God, teach people how to be villains out here.
Like, I'm gonna add Lexi as my favorite villain. All right, the next one is Maleficent. She loves all the earth, only likes one human.
And then Roman Reigns. So I actually know what that is. Sometimes being a good guy gets you nowhere. That's real.
So thank y'all for y'all's very thoughtful and intentional answers. Yep. Yo, y'all be going in on Facebook. And actually, Asa didn't answer this time, but shout out to everybody else.
We know who his villain was going to be. But it wouldn't have been her favorite, but they would have been a villain.
Dangerous white man. I actually rewatched Pocahontas the other day. The song still hit. The historical accuracy is still ridiculous. But the way they villainize like colonization and them, very spot on.
Yeah.
Very spot on. They went in on them the entire movie. When I was little, I didn't catch some of it. But anyways. Okay, so I have actually already talked about triggers on Carlie's Couch in episode 37 about being triggered, and then also triggers for your anxiety in episode 173. So if you haven't, or if you're really working through your triggers, those are great episodes 37 and 173 to listen to. But today, we're focusing on the opposite of triggers, which are glimmers.
So now we're going to talk about the definition of triggers, so you have something to juxtapose against today's topic. Triggers are a cue from your environment that activate your sympathetic nervous system body based on knowledge or past experiences into a stress response. So this is when you're sensing danger to fight, flee, freeze, and we've talked about that so many times on the podcast, so you know what that is when your body tenses up and something has triggered a reaction based off of your past or some trauma or anything else that has not processed for you.
And a glimmer, the word glimmer, introduced by social worker Deb Dana as a part of the Polyvagal Theory, are micro moments of joy that help make us feel happy, hopeful, and safe. They bring a sense of connection and regulation, opposite of triggers, to the body, cueing our nervous system into moving into the parasympathetic nervous system. So instead of activating our fight, flight, or freeze, they actually help us feel calm, relaxed, and open. They are micro moments of awe and little things during the day that trigger that sense of calmness, of peace, and of connectedness. So when you're like looking at them side by side, triggers activate your sympathetic nervous system, fight, flight, freeze. Glimmers activate parasympathetic nervous system, which helps you regulate. Okay, so I saw the word glimmer, I think, on TikTok, which I guess has been an inspiration for me lately, which I haven't even been on lately, which is funny. But the things I have been on, I saw. And I was like, they were like, oh, you've heard of triggers, but what's a glimmer? And so I started researching, and I was like, oh, interesting. These kind of sound like whenever we talked about focusing on joy in an episode not too long ago, that the idea of glimmers are some of those things that spark joy. And so I wanted to talk about that. And first, I think it's important, like, who is this episode for? Who can benefit from glimmers and learning about them? Everybody.
It's about being able to capture those moments throughout your day and ongoing. And so I can't think of any reason why it wouldn't be good to have those moments where you're just like, and it feels like life is good, right? And like you just have a moment to enjoy. I have those moments all the time, so I'm excited to think a little bit more deeply about what those things are that make me feel not even like good, but like you just feel content, and you feel like, you know, all is okay in the world, even when it's obviously not. But it's a good little reset. And for me, though, I never really thought about like trying to add them into your life or, you know, anything like that. I think it's a thing that happens. And I think, so correct me because you're going to get into it a little more. But to me, it's like the more my nervous system is regulated in general, the more effect that glimmers have on me, as opposed to it being like I need more of them or less of them. It's kind of like where you are. And I think a lot of things add into that. Your meditation practice, your stress levels, your, you know, all the things just add into how open of a vessel you are for like them to have an effect on you.
Absolutely. So if you are more regulated, and you will see those things and they'll be more common for you, but I think it's important to actually make it somewhat of a practice and actually think about it and be really intentional, because our bodies are set to be negative and scan for potential threats. Like, it's a survival mechanism. The negativity prompts our brains to pay attention to what's going on, and our brains start to look for more negative things than positive things. That's just our biology to keep us alive. But unfortunately, that leads to the disconnect and a dysregulated nervous system. And so especially people who like have suffered from trauma, because there's even a more hyper awareness of what's going on and controlling your environment. And so we can use those things that make us notice the negative and dysregulate us, if we're intentional about them, to actually turn them and focus on the positive. And so that's why I think it's a little bit of an intentional practice. So if you're more regulated, definitely more glimmers. But even if you're not, you can kind of biohack yourself into getting more of them in your everyday.
And so you're saying the same way that you may call out more often like a negative thing when you see it, or you let it weigh a little more on you, to also pay more attention to those little positive things, and then maybe even like just taking that moment can make them a little bit brighter in that time and help you to reset, to look for more of those.
Absolutely. Yep. And I think it's so important because like the more you do that, the more you build those positive neural pathways in your brain, the more it's a practice of having positive thoughts, the more you feel better, the more your nervous system is regulated, the more your stress is down regulated, and you can start to feel better and become healthier, and just working on it. It's just one of those practices that I think that everybody could benefit from.
Mm-hmm. And then also kind of feeling good mentally in that way allows you to have more like capacity and space to, be productive, or you're enjoying your day, or you might smile a little more. And then of course, as we've spoken about before as well, that's like a cycle of, just a good energy space to be in. So they're important because they build new pathways, neural pathways, they cultivate optimism, and they build resilience.
Yes. So the more that you're able to notice the positive, it kind of lessens the impact of what's going on. Like you said, it lets you know that everything's going to be okay in your nervous system, even when the world is insane and there's ridiculous things happening around us. It's the practice of it that helps you, just remind you, like, even though all this shit is fucked up, like, this can still be okay.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And I, in thinking about how this applies for me, very often in that moment, like I was saying, it's just like, everything's cool right now. And it's almost like you're practicing gratitude, where at the very end of the day, when it's like, I'm still here type of thing, it's like, okay, there's always that. So any glimmer, it just allows you to have that moment of feeling okay. And so I think that is generally what we're striving for, and being resilient amidst, everything going crazy, other people acting funny. Really, it's kind of about like protecting your peace.
And where do we find them? So glimmers, I like that there's a technical definition of the word glimmer, which is it's a faint or wavering light, which points to the difficulty. Like, it might be hard. You might miss them if you're not looking for them. You might miss the little sparkle if you're not looking for it, if you're not intentional, if you're so focused on the negative or so stressed out, you might actually miss those little moments. And I think it's important to note that. That's why I say it's a practice, because if you're not intentional, you'll miss it. You'll miss the rainbow because you're looking down at your phone.
And they also could be different for every person. We all have different backgrounds. Different things are inspiring or evoke awe in us. And so anybody's glimmers can be different. And so when you're thinking about this, going through your day, your week, be sure to like kind of explore what that could be for you, because it might not be the same things that we mention are glimmers for us.
And you'll know it's a glimmer whenever you do feel that little, I love you said evokes awe. I think that's one of the best ways to put it. Like that little moment of awe, that little warmth of gratitude that fills you, the little smile whenever you see, a really cute dog doing something, or like kids playing, or whatever makes you smile. It's something that kind of stops you in your tracks, like a little sparkle throughout your day. Mm-hmm. And so some examples of that is if you have the perfect cup of coffee or tea, like you're like, oh, this is so good. I'm so grateful. My whole world is alive for a moment. No, these are just examples. Oh. These are just some examples, but we can use ours instead. But I wanted to show like just an array, because like I said, it could be different for every single person.
Okay. So then going off of some of these examples, another one is a stranger's smile, the warmth in somebody's voice, hearing somebody's voice when, they're genuinely excited to see you could be a glimmer.
In nature. So, and this is actually me, but like seeing flowers, like beautiful flowers in the garden, smelling them, noticing a beautiful sunset. Like I was taking pictures of the sunset today when I was walking to pick up my car from the mechanics, but that was a glimmer for me.
Another might be like a blast from the past. Maybe if a song that you loved comes on the radio, or while you're in the store or something like that, or makes you think of somebody or a time that you had. Those are good moments that you kind of can get lost for a moment.
Thinking about all those senses. So you're seeing things, you're hearing things. When you smell, like if the scent of somebody's perfume or of like fresh baked goods maybe takes you back to your grandma's house, or, someone that you used to deal with, like, oh, that was a good time. You just like smell something and it kind of transports you for a moment.
And I think that's important too, because it is the use of all of your senses. It's like being able to appreciate and enjoy the world around you. And there's so many ways that we can do that. I wish we were like some of the other animals where they have like literally like tens of and so many more senses, and it's like we can't even comprehend like what that means. but all of the smells and touches and taste and things you hear and see around us are all kind of gifts. And so it's being able to take advantage of all of that around you. Some of my specific moments that I will get like that are like sitting outside in the sun is a big one for me. Just like when you see animals do that and they go lay in the sun, like I also just like, I just want to lay out here for a moment or sit outside and, even just thinking, not doing anything. Just makes me feel so good. Like everything's good. I love to see, look out and see a clear sky and mountains and nature, all nature stuff. I feel like Carlie's going to be similar with that. For me, it's always a glimmer to see like little wildlife. That's why I love my time in the Bahamas, because like you'll look around and it's like a snail and a lizard and a this and a that. And it just feels like, wow, there's so much life around you, or, things moving around. One thing I will notice and say that I've thought about often is I hate that seeing another person is not really a glimmer. It should be, how like dogs see each other and they get so excited. And I'd be like, dang, I wish, if we were this excited to see other humans, that could be cool, but nah. So that not so much people all the time, but it is different. Again, going back to the Bahamas, because one thing I have learned so much this past year that is true is that being in an environment or a country where everybody looks like you is such a different experience, to where I also recognize, and sorry, I'm getting slightly off topic, but it's about glimmers, because when I'm in those environments, I can notice more glimmers, and it's not as tight as being in spaces where you might have certain, and you're not even like walking around worried or thinking something's going to happen to you, but I can't even explain just how different it is. Like there's just a totally different level of stresses and things you don't have to think about in the same way. And so that is one of the reasons why I just like looking around at anything is just like, like the air and taking a deep breath, and like there's just a lot more to the outside because of that. Seeing dogs is always a glimmer. That's enough for me, but that's enough.
You're not far off though. Like I think so too. Any of my friends who have went to Ghana or anywhere in Africa say that they didn't realize how much stress they were holding in their chest until they actually got there and were in those spaces. Like, oh my God, I didn't even know I was so worried, or that I had to be so hard or be a certain way until they were in spaces that were different and have everybody that look like you, and you're not the minority in a space, or even that is just not in a space that is built against you, which is also different. So I think that is also something to think about. Like, in what spaces do you feel more glimmers, and where in your life do you notice? I think that's important, and making sure you could be there as much as possible in those spaces where you can feel free to actually, soak it all in. For me, I love putting on my body butter. It's a thing for me. It's like a ritual. I think that's why I love doing it, why I created it, because it's just a little moment for myself. Also, being freshly showered, freshly buttered, and getting into freshly washed sheets, baby. Like, ooh, like I feel so good. It's just like my favorite. Like, I get so excited, and I be like, God, I'm so grateful to be alive. Like, this is the best part of my day.
You seeing those? I don't know what to call things anymore. It's not a meme, but like it's a reel or like video people do, where they be like, when you get under the covers and you do that like happy like and you just like wild out for a minute, and it's like, shit, you be in the bed like, yes. You be lit.
Rub my little feet together. I be like, oh
yeah, you be turned up for a minute. It's like everybody go crazy when you get in the bed.
It's my favorite. I just the simple pleasures, like, but the great cup of coffee, like I actually do have glimmers when I see people sometimes. Like, I got really excited when I saw you today. Like, I was like a little moment, like, oh, hi. Like, I'm so excited to see you, like a dog. I love nature. Anytime I'm by it, I notice a sense of calmness wash over me when I'm by the ocean. And so that's always beautiful. I love the sun on my skin. I was trying to think of things that I see, feel, smell. I really love the smell of coffee. Actually, I kind of like it sometimes more than the taste. But like whenever I'm at my auntie house, my uncle gonna get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and start making coffee, and so you like wake up to the smell of coffee and sausage and biscuits and stuff, and so that always feels like home. Taste, touch, yeah, anything cozy. Like that's a big deal for me. I also like the little thing of like lighting a candle, like the act of like just lighting that or my incense for me and seeing the little smoke plume up, like so special. And so yeah, all
not
those
doing
little
the things, but being in that space. Like,
Yeah.
you know, when you just get to kind of like sit down, you're cozy, you got a little incense on, you know, when you can just feel safe, you know. Is another big thing that it sounds like we're saying, like when you're in your space and all that, outside of like moments of awe with nature and the like. Also, side note that these emotions are also the type of emotions that that successful content on social media evokes, which is why like we'll be in those like you know, just scroll. Like sometimes at nighttime, I really will get into this phase of like actually everything is funny, or it'll be like a lot of dog content really, but I'll just be like like laughing at dogs and stuff. Like I don't know these like it's stupid, but like I'll be legitly like feeling good and entertained. Anyway, all that to say, like, you know, notice what emotions the stuff you looks at evokes, because I think with social it's either like trigger or
yeah.
or the other
Glimmer.
way, or a glimmer. Yeah. And like that's why I kind of noticed too, like that's when I need to put my phone down, when it's like you start being like shut up, or like what are you talking about, or like, you know, getting frustrated or whatever, and try to fill your content, I mean not fill your content, but you know what I mean, like try to consume content and things, excuse me, gosh, that are going to more so activate your glimmers than triggers.
100%. And so I love that. So I think that's a great way to find them, is like noticing those things, and also like clearing out if you are following a bunch of things that don't make you feel good, mute them, follow things that do. I follow so many dog accounts and decor accounts and travel accounts and food. Like I love saving recipes. Another thing is we touched on this at the beginning, but I think the biggest way to find glimmers is to set an intention to actually look for them, because you can miss them. And in this article that I read, they said, like, you would say, oh, I want to see one glimmer before lunch. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, if that's how that works for you, that might not be my thing. But I'm like, oh, I want to, you know, just be more intentional about like looking around for those things that evoke these feelings in me.
Mm-hmm. And in biohacking your brain, when you're thinking about something that you want to see, or saying, hey, I'm paying attention or noticing it, then you often tend to see more of that. And so just making notes and journaling when that moment does occur will help you to understand like how often, you know, you may be experiencing it. And because you're paying attention to it, you may be more likely to have those moments.
Yeah, that reticular activation system, that is like the biggest biohack, because anything, like think about a blue Tesla, you're going to see it. All y'all complaining about Cybertrucks on Twitter. That's why y'all see them hoes all the time.
Another part to that though, that I think is interesting is, as I finished saying that, I realized also too that the times that you forget, or you're like not thinking about, you know, being like intentional about what you're seeing, experiencing, etc., is when you're doing stuff. And because I was thinking like, oh man, thinking about how many hours in a row probably I'm like working or in meetings or whatever. And then that's just a reminder that the glimmers are kind of when you're not like when you're kind of being a little more still, and when you are not like super busy or like in action, most likely. And they can happen around your work too. But all of that to say, I think that also it's important to have some peaceful time, or like at least like set that, so that could be part of it too, is like you know, set the time or the environment to be able to like not have to be on super go mode, because it's going to be a lot harder to even, you know, be able to have your own like thoughts and stuff during that time.
For sure. I think intention is a big piece, but like then presence. So not just like the setting of the goal and that being another thing to like not do during the day, or, you know, beat yourself up about, but just setting the intention and letting it go, like putting it out there, writing your journal, like I want to see this, and then letting it go, but allowing yourself to really be present in the moment. Like me training my clients and working with kids, like, you know, I have a lot of little glimmers in those moments, and it's really special. And when you have them, I think the act of actually enjoying them and allowing yourself to soak it up whenever you are like, oh, this sun feels so good on my skin right now, and just enjoying and thinking about all of your 5 senses. Like, how can you enjoy more pleasure throughout the day in what you see and what you taste and what you touch and how you move and what you're listening to, music that feels real good, all of those things.
But one thing I want to ask you is that with your glimmers, it's not just like you creating them, right? Like, because yes, we can set moods and make space to feel good and cozy and peaceful and all that, but you're calling something a glimmer is kind of like when it just happens, when you're out and about.
Yeah, I think you can just be intentional, like as intentional as you can be about your environment and where you are. Because I'm going to feel way more glimmers at my house, you know, where I have flowers and I set up a candle, I'm doing that versus like me driving in traffic.
Okay, so that's good to think about too then. It's like, where am I? Because now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I think I am mostly in my own house. So I will pay attention to that a little more too, because that is okay. It's like, that's the point of like, if you're going to feel good anywhere and have those moments, hopefully it's in the space, you know, that you live in or occupy. So that's something that I'll think about a little bit too. It's like, yes, they're just like moments that happen, but do they all happen because like that's where my routine, you know, caused me to be, like sitting out here or doing this or doing that, and those are the things that make me feel good and happy. So like how much of it is like, this is just part of my routine, and what things just like kind of occur.
Yeah, and even like trying to be more intentional, like about setting up that space like that. You might not even have glimmers. So I think about driving in traffic, like not a lot of glimmers in that, unless you're like, oh, wow, look at that sunset. That's beautiful. I'm so grateful to be driving in this. But also in my car, I have like this little scent thing, but it's actually like a little faux plant. So that makes me happy. And I'm not saying that's a glimmer, but it makes me more happy when I'm like, oh, my car smells good. And look at this cute little thing in my car and how intentional I was about that. Go me. Yeah. So how can you set up your environment or just be more intentional when you're out in spaces to notice glimmers? And I think also sharing them with friends, because we share bad things a lot, but the practice of sharing what good things happened to you or what things like made you smile today is really big. I always ask people like, what brought you joy today or this week, or what are you doing to intentionally love on yourself? And so it may seem silly, like why would I tell my friend that? But you tell them everything else. Why would you not talk about these things too?
Yeah, that's a super good point. And in general, that goes back to you focusing on and really allowing like those positive moments to soak in, and not just be like little passing moments. It's like looking at our life through a lens of like, life is awesome and maybe these little things happen, as opposed to like stuff is terrible, but there's these little points of silver lining or good looks. So we want to try to let this piece be our base, and then the little things that happen, but to have the ability to find that place and to see that when you say, you know what, like that's where I'm at, or that's what I want to see right now, could be a pretty cool superpower. So we want you to try that this week. Think about the glimmers in your life. Share them with us if you have some that are interesting that you found. Write them in a notebook this week and learn more about your glimmers and how you can activate more of those moments.
Shine on. Bye, y'all.